Well, this is officially the time of year, the time we all crave for. It's Christmas, it's July 4th. Whatever holiday is your favorite, it's coming. It's opening weekend in college baseball. It's not summer ball, though we talk about it like it's everything. It's not fall ball. Again, we'll talk about it as if the fall and the changing of the leaves means everything to college baseball. It really doesn't. Opening week means everything. The regular season means everything because it's the chance to play your way to Omaha, Nebraska. Hi there, folks. On behalf of Perfect Game TV, my name is Darren Sutton, and welcome to the opening week and then what follows the opening month of college baseball. Glad to spend time with all of you, and we're going to get to know some of the top teams. We have such a great team. Craig Kosar gave nearly a quarter century as a coach. I mean, such a successful coach, whether it be as an assistant or a head coach, part of our leadership and our scouting team with Perfect Game, and Vinny Servino, his national cross-checker reference, plus leading all the content on the college side. These two gentlemen are going to get us going. Guys, thanks for hanging out with us. Your insights are certainly welcome. Vinny, I'll start with you as you kind of manage all the content that flows through your world. You know, I kind of threw some hyperbole out there to start things, but it is pretty exciting that we're playing for real. Not fall ball, not summer ball, but real college baseball.
Thanks, Darren. It's been, I think you hit the nail on the head. It basically is Christmas in February, so to speak. College baseball's right around the corner. Opening week is here. We have a ton of content that went out. We did conference previews for every conference that is in Division I baseball. All that good stuff and top 25 rankings and team breakdowns can be found at perfectgame.org.
Yeah, incredible stuff. Craig, you've done this. And by the way, we want to remind you, go back because that's how I did all my research for this, perfectgame.org. Craig, you've done this. You've prepared teams. You've made sure that they, through Christmas time, got their workouts in, showed up back in shape, kept them out of trouble through the fall, got them working out. As a coach, as a leader of a baseball program, how much does this week and then the opening weeks to follow, as we'll air this program for a bit, how much does it mean to you as a coach and to the players themselves?
Well, obviously, it's the culmination of months of hard work. And, you know, it's a scary time because as a coach, as a staff, you have to put a ton of trust into your guys and to the programming that your staff put together for them during the off season so that you can hit the ground running because you only have 3 weeks to prepare for opening day, which is difficult. And, you know, there's two games you're never prepared for. It's the first game of the year and the last game of the year. You know, the weather's been challenging in most of the regions. That's always a factor, no doubt about it. You know, this week, you know, it's really about just trying to calm the guys down because they're going to be chomping at the bit and ready to go as we approach opening day this Friday. It's amazing.
Let's take a look at our top 10. These gentlemen put this top 10 together, and their leadership, along with those that contribute as scouts and all the communications they've done. You see, you know, SEC dominating, not surprising. As we go all the way down, we'll talk about teams within the top 25. We'll go conference by conference. Vinny, you guys rolled this out in January with all your research. Everyone has stayed pretty much healthy in this top 10. So are you still liking the top 10 as we are now in opening week of college baseball?
Oh, yeah. I still love our top 10. Like you mentioned, it's SEC driven, SEC heavy. But even, you know, outside of the top 25, which we put together, obviously, the two of us, then our entire scouting department and outside sources, all the feedback that we've gotten from coaches, you know, surveys from around the entirety of Division I, everyone seems to be pretty agreed upon the fact that LSU is the team to beat heading into the season.
So, Craig, take that. Take LSU, because it's almost as if it's the elite Cape Cod team. It's a collection of players. It's not all homegrown players. It's some that have transferred. Some left. I mean, some just didn't fit in Jay's team. The collection of talent has them in number one. Why don't you take LSU and chat about them for a while?
Yeah, that's an easy one, obviously. But when you look at the new world of the transfer portal, it's hard to comprehend that a team was able to do what LSU did as far as grabbing such a large portion of the elite talent that went into the portal. But I feel like if you had a points ranking through all the polls throughout the nation, I feel like that LSU would have taken all of the first place votes. It's hard to believe there'd ever be a more consensus preseason number one team than LSU. And you'd have to sit there and take a look at this roster and say that it's got to be the most talented roster in the history of the BB Core era, I would imagine. And, you know, Dylan Cruz is the consensus number one ranked prospect in the nation. Just an unbelievable professional hitter, ton of bat speed, power, pitch recognition, you know, is just off the charts. If he duplicates what he did last year, then you have to feel like he's probably one of the first names called, and goes off the board very, very early. Then you jump right in to the transfer portal. And of course, you look at Tommy White, who was the freshman of the year last year in college baseball. And that advanced approach that he has with unbelievable power is amazing. And the guy that I'm most excited to see is Paul Skeens and his adjustment to the SEC. Coming from Air Force, 6'6", right-handed pitcher, going to be their Friday night guy. Pretty much every time out approaches 100 miles an hour. He's refined his secondary pitches, sliders much better, changeup's a workable pitch. Then you can look at Christian Little, a guy that hasn't been talked about nearly as much, across the transfer scene. But Christian Little, if you guys remember, pitched for Vanderbilt as a 17-year-old in the College World Series. So if he has a year, just imagine the depth that they're running out there. Chase Shores is a special freshman, a monster at 6'6" that throws the ball in the mid-90s. So it's just this glut of talent. And I'm interested to see how Jay Johnson manages this, because you're going to have guys on that bench, not in the starting lineup, that would probably be starting at any other SEC school, much less school around the nation. So how do you manage that throughout a season? How do you get these guys that have expectations of being drafted enough reps, plate appearances, and innings on the mound to make sure that you keep the chemistry the way it needs to be if you're going to go wire to wire number one in the nation?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be his greatest challenge. I mean, he's always an amazing rah-rah coach, a leader of young men. I covered him, deeply when he was with Arizona. He was a winner. He's a winner at Reno when he was up there. He does it just about everywhere. Last year, they finished 17 in the RPI. They were 14-20 in Q1 games. I'll mention that to folks. That's 1 through 50. In the current RPI when you play those games and how it ends up. All the players you mentioned, I'm thrilled about. I'm also excited to see the best, in my mind, defensive first baseman and one of the coolest cats in the world, Trey Morgan at LSU. Love him, love him, love him. Vinny, Tennessee, number 2. They got the swagger. If Jay Johnson has the transfers, Tennessee has, first of all, the flamethrowers on the mound, the swagger as head coach. He's probably the biggest rock star head coach in all of college baseball, and Tony Vitello. You guys rank Tennessee at 2.
Yeah, as a longstanding supporter of Italians in baseball, we're big Tony V fans over here. I love this Tennessee team. I think this Vols team is going to be a lot better than people realize. We ranked them at number 2. I felt like that was going out on a limb a little bit. But obviously they lose, I think it's 6 or 7 of their 9 starters in the lineup. But you have a combination of transfers and guys who played a significant amount of time last year, albeit not in full-time starting roles, right? You have guys like Jared Dickey, who's going to get a full season now, either behind the plate or at first base. Guys like Kyle Booker, who's been there for 2 years and is finally time to shine in center field. Blake Burke hit, I think it was 15 home runs and 100 plate appearances or something. It was an insane number. He's going to get a full-time starting role every day. I think this offense is going to be a lot deadlier than people realize, and they bring back the best starting rotation in the SEC. Chase Dolander, Chase Burns, and Drew Beam. Chase Dolander has a chance to be the 1-1 pick. He's a guy who's currently being talked about in the same rarefied air of guys like Cole and Bauer and Strasburg for best college right-handed pitching prospect that we've seen probably in about a decade. Chase Burns and Drew Beam were true freshmen last year. Drew Beam won the SEC Freshman of the Year. It's a really, really deep pitching rotation, too, outside of that. You have guys who are throwing mid-90s in the bullpen. Obviously, you lose a guy like Ben Joyce, who throws 103, but there's a lot of good, talented arms in that staff. And I think when you add in transfers that they've made on the offensive side, like Griffin Merritt, who was the American Conference Player of the Year last year at Cincinnati, Zane Denton, who has 3 years of SEC experience in Alabama, it's a very deadly team, and there always seems to be this kind of the curse of the number 1 seed, right? Tennessee lost in a super last year. They were basically the consensus number 1 team from the second week of the season to the end. But it's always those teams that seem to kind of figure it out the year after they've been that number 1 consensus forever. You look at teams like Florida, who was the number 1 consensus a couple years back, Oregon State, who had that 54-win season. They kind of got it done the year after. And that's why I think Tennessee has a really, really good shot to get it done this year.
Let's dig in a little deeper on this conference. It's not news. It's very much an old story now that the SEC, as it pertains to RPI, as the season goes along, they just fatten up on one another. I mean, that's how they stay in their spaces. The mid-majors, if they could ever get 3 that jumps into that space, they could join that kind of Power 5 group. But guys, I see your rankings. I see Ole Miss. Obviously, Arkansas is at 4. Ole Miss, the champs, at 6. Florida at 8. A&M at 10. Vandy, and then Auburn. Look, we don't have to dive as deep as we have on these first couple. Vinny, but when you talk about the SEC, again, it's just one of those, it's almost like the Yankees, Dodgers, and fill in the blank at the big leagues. It's a conference that keeps getting better and better and better, and they lift one another every year.
There's a ton of depth throughout this conference. One team that really sticks out to me, though, the more I kind of follow these spring practices, is the Florida Gators. As a Florida State graduate, obviously, it pains me to say this, but I think Florida has a really, really good shot to be potentially the best team in the country if everything clicks right for them. You have year 2 of Pierce Coppola, who missed the entire year with an injury last season. He's expected to miss a couple weeks to start the year while he's still rehabbing that back injury, but if he comes back, he's a first-round talent. Jack Caglianone is hitting 115-mile-an-hour exit velocity home runs and also throwing 100 from the left side. They get Hurston Waldrop, who was potentially the best transfer portal pitcher not named Paul Skeens, from Southern Miss, up to 98, 99, huge swing and miss stuff. They have a ton of guys that throw 95 out of the bullpen. Guys like Philip Abner, Brandon Neely made a lot of starts as a freshman last year. They have a lot of options when it comes to pitching. And this is a veteran offense, too. Outside of Caglianone, Derek Fabian's in year 2. Josh O'Hara's back at shortstop. Michael Robertson should probably get an everyday role in center field. This is a very dangerous team, and one that I think could probably be as good as what Kevin O'Sullivan's had there. And obviously that's saying a lot considering he's won a national title there before.
Yeah, O'Sullivan's got 627 career victories while coaching at that program. I'm excited to see Michael Robertson come back. He used to play for a couple of years for the Florida Burn. Hasn't been healthy. He'll be healthy this year. He's fast. He can run. He'll slide his way somewhere in there. Let me ask you, Craig, about Vanderbilt, because when you think about Tim Corbin and his just built-in success, he's a Mercedes. He's a Louis Vuitton. He's a brand, and he deserves it. But what stands out to me beyond Carter Holton, who we love, is a PG All-American, kind of a military school kid who's shown that same discipline, and Enrique Bradfield Jr., who could sneak by and be 1-1 overall. I don't think I'm crazy on that. You guys can tell me I'm wrong. Is the fact that Andrew Dukanich out of Indianapolis, who could have been a first-round pick, wanted to go to college. And he made it very clear. So all those 3 popcorn machine ideas, those 3 players, and the concept of Vanderbilt, along with Dukanich, what interests you most about the boys in Nashville, Tennessee?
Well, obviously you can imagine what the expectations are when they play in the championship game of a regional last year and lose, and it was considered a bad year, a down year. And, that's what Coach Corbin has created in that program. And they're notorious for getting their guys that are considered high draft picks out of high school. And it's a combination of, obviously, the Vanderbilt degree and the program that Coach Corbin has built there. They just create an environment where people want to be a part of what's going on there. And so they get the types of players that fit into that system and thrive in that environment. It's going to be very interesting to see just exactly how motivated they are based on how disappointed people were about their season last year, because it was challenging. It was up and down. There's been conversation, and I don't mind saying this candidly, there's been kind of conversation through the back channels that Vanderbilt's not going to be able to compete nearly as much in this world of NIL. Because they're not one of the more active SEC programs when it comes to name, image, likeness. So what is their niche? How do they ensure that they get these players? And so it's an interesting time for this program. But, if you doubt Tim Corbin, then you're setting yourself up to get punched in the face. So I think that Vanderbilt's, laying in the weeds. I think they're probably pretty happy with the fact that, not a lot of people have them in the top 10. But I think they're going to come out and have a different toughness and hardness about them this year.
Vinny, I have to ask you about Auburn. I love Butch Thompson. I actually played against him in college. We were 2 small college guys. But I want to ask you about their number 17 spot, and here's why. When you guys rolled out the all-conference team, there was no one from Auburn on that team, which tells me something. A, Butch is a really good coach. And B, there's a lot of selfless and kind of role players on that team that are going to help Auburn win. Why did they find themselves into the number 17 spot?
At this point, if you're counting out Butch, you're not really doing a good job. Because he's shown time and time again he can take teams to Omaha. Obviously, they lose Sonny DeShera, kind of the heartbeat of that lineup. They lose Blake Burkhalter, who's kind of the heartbeat of that pitching rotation. But they're still a very good team. Cole Foster's a solid guy who can play a lot of different positions in the offense. They bring back some older, experienced guys. One name to note in the Auburn lineup that's going to play right away is Ike Irish, freshman PG All-American from Orchard Lake St. Mary's. Can really, really rake. Even if he's the designated hitter, I don't think he's going to get a lot of catching time, but he can rake, he's got power, he can hit. Then you look at the pitching side of things, and they have a bona fide Friday night ace in Joseph Gonzalez. He's a guy who pitched with 3.22 ERA last year in the SEC. Didn't have a ton of strikeouts. The stuff upticked this summer. Now he's kind of sitting mid-90s, touching a little bit higher. They have a Friday night ace. They have a talented freshman crop. This is a pretty good Auburn team, I think. And the fact that Butch is leading those guys down the track shows me that I'm not going to count them out. That's why we have them in the top 25. That's why we have them at 17. This is definitely a sneaky contender in the SEC.
I love it. I love when Butch gets that kind of respect, having known him many years ago. Ike Irish, by the way, voted on by his teammates. A little private vote they got together. He was the MVP in the fall. He was a freshman, and his teammates voted him the MVP. Another freshman I'm excited to see. He struts like he's already throwing 98 and he's a Friday night starter, but Zach Crotchfeld is an interesting player. We saw him at a lot of PG events. I'm excited to see him. These mothership studios are out west, so I'm not going to let you guys go too long without talking about my pack. I kind of have my skin crawling going this deep into the SEC. So let's start with Stanford, because as I see you guys roll them out, you have Stanford, then UCLA, Oregon State. I want to touch on all of them. Craig, what stands out to you? If I say Esker, Stanford, what are some of the names that are you most excited about?
I want to start with Coach Esker because I had a really long, good conversation about his club in the fall. And he's kind of like the baseball whisperer. You know, he just has such a calming effect on his team, and I think his team adopts that attitude, and they're very businesslike, but they're extremely talented. In fact, I'm assuming we've released our scouts picks, but I actually have them as my pick for the national title this year, for national champions, believe it or not, going all the way out west. Yes. So now Quinn Matthews, you start right there. You got to have somebody that's going to set the tone on a Friday night. The guy has done it all in his career there. Ryan Bruno is a knockout closer at the back end of the bullpen. So when you've got those two to kind of bookend the pitching staff that is very junior heavy, this is a special junior class that they have there in Stanford. In fact, I think they're the only team in the nation with 5 preseason All-Americans, if I'm correct, and that's in their lineup. So very talented. Carter Graham sets the tone for them from an offensive standpoint. Tommy Troy, preseason All-American. Drew Bowser, he's a guy that has been a known entity for a while, just an absolute physical freak. I believe he had 18 home runs last year. So this lineup has depth. It has power. They're very blue collar on the defensive side. They're going to field 980, and they got experience. And maybe they don't have the pitcher that's throwing 100 miles an hour, but they're all going to be quality, low to mid 90s arms with pitchability. And you're going to look up at the end of the weekend, and they haven't given you anything. They're just not going to give anything away, and it's going to be a grind. It's going to be 27 innings at least of a grind against the Stanford Cardinal for sure.
The only one arm that may touch 100, if he does, is Braden Montgomery. It just is a matter of how often he'll pitch. He was kind of a wild card, as you guys know, last year. I can't do the heart like the kids do it. I'm not good at it. I heart Tommy Troy so much.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know what to say. The son of a career policeman. I remember Vinny back at Chase Field. We've returned now to Chase Field for national. He wasn't an All-American in the end, but he looked like he was above the infield like a hovercraft. The way he moved defensively. I don't have your guys' eyes, but he was just different then. And so this is a really, really fun team, this Stanford team. If we pop down a little bit, we see UCLA, John Savage, almost 700 wins on campus there at UCLA. You guys never count out the guy from Jackie Robinson Stadium. Vinny, there are some familiar names. In the PG world, there are some new names. He doesn't take a lot of transfer portal guys, and never has at UCLA since that started to open up. What do you like about the men from Westwood?
Yeah, this UCLA team is obviously John Savage, great coach, very well-respected coach. They make a lot of their living off high school recruiting. They're kind of similar to Vanderbilt in that way that we touched on earlier. I'm expecting a very, very big season from their middle infield between Cody Schreier and Ethan Gorson at second base. Schreier was a freshman All-American a year ago. He was a PG All-American back in high school from a powerhouse Cali program in J. Sarah. All the indicators are there. He can run, he can throw, he can hit. He can hit with some power. I think he had 9 home runs last year. Probably is a good starting point for them there. And Gorson is another guy who started right away as a freshman. This was a very, very young UCLA team last year. And a lot of freshmen went through and they took their lumps, but a lot of freshmen played very well too. Obviously losing Thatcher Hurd hurts a little bit, but you get a guy back in Jake Brooks, Friday night starter. Maybe not expected him to come back, but he's back now. Alonzo Treadwell and Ethan Flanagan were terrific as true freshmen last year. Both should probably be making the transition to the starting rotation. Treadwell has an invisible fastball that he runs at 95-96. Big, durable, durably built right-handed pitcher. Flanagan, kind of an 88-91 lefty who's touching a little bit higher now, but can really pitch, can spin a breaking ball. Both had freshman All-American seasons last year. So there's a lot of these freshmen who are taking the step forward in year 2 that I expect to have big seasons for UCLA.
Savage, one of my favorite quotes, kind of going through the COVID years where there were 50-year guys, some 6-year guys, 23 and 24-year-olds staying on campus to play. He said at the ABCA, we're past that now. He said, as a matter of fact, at UCLA, we don't have 23-year-old players because you talked about it, Vinny. We recruit high school guys. They stay, then they go, and they move on. He said, UCLA 23-year-olds are playing in AA. And I love that quote. They're not playing for my team. They're playing in AA. There's a little bit of swagger, as you guys know, to Coach Savage, much like there is with Coach Waz in Oregon, Craig. This is a guy at PK Park. He really recruits. He recruits that neck of the woods. I'm kind of intrigued. I'd forgotten Sabine Sabalos kind of years ago of PG fame, came through the San Jack route and has ended up in Oregon. That's one name I'm intrigued by. There are many other names. What are you interested about with Oregon and Coach Waz?
Yeah, talked to Waz again this fall as well, and he's really bullish on his offense up there. He thinks that they have a chance to slug with anybody, the thing that he kept going back to, and this is, there's something to be said for this, is the physicality of his team. He just says that, look, when we get off the bus, we look the part. When we take the field, we are as physical as any team. And you know what? There's an emotional part to that. It all kind of starts with Tanner Smith, though, the senior leadoff guy. May hit in the 2-hole for them. Really professional approach to hitting, handles the bat well, sets the tone for them. And he did run the ball out of the park 11 times last year, so it's not like he's light with the stick, but he's more of that slashing type player at the top. Drew Cowley had a hamate injury and was arguably the best hitter in the nation last year for the first month, was batting .424, I believe, before the hamate injury got him, but he's going to be back and healthy, probably hitting in the 3-hole for them. And then Dominic Hellman is the guy that he kept talking about. The freshman, going to be a DH, 6'6", 230 pounds, and he says he's got just light tower power. He says he misses balls and they still go out by 40 feet. So he's going to be in the middle of that lineup. So yeah, they feel like they can slug with basically anybody, but what's going on in that bump in the middle of the field, right? So Logan Mercado looked prime to take over the Friday night spot for them. He didn't really know exactly what the rotation was going to look like yet when I'm talking about Coach Waz, but we spent plenty of time on the offense, and if they can stabilize things on the mound, I think that they're going to be a factor definitely in the pack this year.
Let's pause for a minute. When we come back, there are multiple conferences we haven't touched on, and right around the corner, the ACC. We're getting you set for the 2023 college baseball season. Thanks for hanging out with us on this D1 preview. Craig, Vinny, and Darren, our Division I college baseball preview. Our eyes were a little bit bigger than our stomach. That always happens when you walk up to a buffet. So we're going to take smaller sample sizes going forward so that we can get this inside of kind of a watchable window, but it's going to be fun. Look, when we talk about the ACC, there are some fun names on the list. I know, Vinny, you and Craig were just talking back and forth about your love for Wake Forest and who Coach Walter's team is. He's got nearly 400 career wins. Why don't you take Wake Forest, throw a few names at me? I know you said you have 5, but give us a few that we really need to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's an overreaction to say this is the best team that Wake Forest has ever had. In terms of talent, top to bottom, Brock Wilkin, freshman All-American 2 years ago, had a little bit of a strikeout problem last year. He looks to be in prime shape. He's got huge juice. Another guy who has huge juice, who was my actually Golden Spikes pick in our staff picks that went out this week, Nick Kurtz, 330 last year, 16 home runs, 48 walks, and 38 strikeouts, among the best defenders at first base in the entire country. And now he's fully healthy. He was battling through some injuries last year, and he still did that in the ACC season. Wake Forest, not the biggest ballpark, as we know. A very hitter-friendly haven. Lots of opportunities for guys like Kurtz and Wilkin to really explode. And then one guy I just want to mention on the mound we haven't really talked about, Rhett Lauder. Might be the best pitcher in the country. 92, 96, plus changeup. Breaking ball's really good. Throws a ton of strikes. Uber competitive. Was Team USA's ace over the summer. Like I mentioned at the beginning, this is the best team Wake's ever had, and I think this is the year that they get to Omaha.
Rhett Lauder, 11 wins, 99 and a third innings, 105 strikeouts, as Vinny said, immense command. I love the courage of Dan McDonald, and I always have, Craig. Just give me a cold weather kid, and I'll make him a ball player. And he really does mine out of those Midwest and Northeastern states. McDonald and his squad falls into the number 7 spot in your rankings. Who are a few players that you love to watch on Louisville?
Christian Knapczyk, if I could say it properly, is just your classic leadoff hitter. And he really sets the tone for that club at the top of the order. Jack Payton is a returning junior catcher who, is probably one of the top guys behind the plate this year. Is going to have another breakout, go to a different level from an offensive standpoint and a power standpoint. And then Gavin Killen is a name to watch. He's going to probably start for them at shortstop. Coach McDonald couldn't say enough about this guy, the maturity of his game, the quality of his defense, and how he's really fit right into this, rather mature club. Tate Keener is going to be a left-hander that should anchor that rotation. Ryan Hawks has had a great fall, right-handed pitcher for them, or just a couple of arms to look for. But I think that, what Louisville went through last year and the challenges they experienced, you're going to really see a hardened team this year. And Coach McDonald is notorious for being able to create that and pull that out of his guys. So watch for Louisville to make a lot of noise, very early on, and then be there at the end in the ACC.
Killen, the freshman cheeser from Wisconsin, love that kid.
Oh, yeah.
And I love the fact that he's, again, cold weather guy, fitting in at Louisville, doing great things. If you're a cold weather guy, Miami sounds great, Vinny, for sure. As a matter of fact, it sounds very hot compared to Wisconsin. This is a team that falls into your number 9 spot. There's a lot of familiar names we've seen before, like Yo-Yo Morales, PG All-American. What are some of the names that you enjoy talking about with Miami?
So I think Miami's going to be really offensive. And real quick, just shouts out to Mark Light Milkshakes over there. They're truly tremendous. But like you mentioned, Yo-Yo Morales, going to have a huge year. I saw him go opposite field, laser home run last year. It's true all field power. Gonna play third base. A really, really, really good piece on this Miami team is CJ Capers. I think he's truly one of the more underrated hitters in the country. He doesn't expand the zone. He doesn't really swing and miss. Really good hit tool. Sneaky runner. Has good power. He's in store for a really big year. I think he's going to end up being a really good draft pick. On the mound, obviously, it's a little bit more guys kind of stepping up in different roles. One name I'm very interested in on the mound is Gage Seal. I think he's going to be in store for a huge season. I think he's going to solidify himself as one of the best ACC pitchers. Had a monster Cape Cod League. And then they get back the best closer in the country in Andrew Walters. Turned down the draft last year. Playing on the same team as his brother. His brother transferred to junior college. But legit mid-90s, upper 90s of this fastball. Good slider. The numbers last year are ridiculous. He averaged about 2 strikeouts an inning.
North Carolina's at 13. You have Alberto Osuna, Matt Horvath last year combined for 38 home runs going on down through the conference. Virginia Tech and Coach Sheff, he's got 500-plus wins. Drew Hackenberg is special there, won 10 times last year. UVA is at number 19. The legendary Brian O'Connor approaching 800 wins. Northwestern transfer Ethan O'Donnell is going to be an interesting watch there. And NC State is at number 21. Last time they went to the College World Series a couple of years back, they had some raw deals on both sides. Sorry to rush through that because I want to get to the Big 12, where you guys have 4 teams from the Big 12. And let's talk and start with Kirk Saarloos and TCU.
Yeah, I think Kirk's settled in, but they basically have to tackle the major issue. What seems to be the deal with the entire Big 12 is replacing almost an entire rotation. Cam Brown is a right-handed pitcher that looks like he's going to really step up. He's up to 99 miles an hour this fall. Could be a guy that anchors that rotation. Offensively, they should still, be very impactful. Braden Taylor was an All-American returning to third base. Should have another monster year and really lead the charge from them offensively. David Bishop's got some of the best power at first base for them in the nation, and will be a guy that's counted on heavily to have that presence in the middle lineup and drive runs in. And then Elijah Nunez is a guy that had a great fall for them as well, kind of a bat control guy, table setter. And that's going to be the core of what they're doing offensively. They did well in the transfer portal, but really it's going to be determined on how successful they are and how much depth they can develop in that pitching staff.
Vinny, Texas Tech is at 16, Tim Tadlock's team. And last year, big games, at least challenging games, they were just 11-13 in Q1 games. Now, rosters turnover, I understand that. Why did they find themselves to that number 16 spot?
The way I talked about Auburn and Butch Thompson is the exact same way I view Texas Tech and Tim Tadlock. I'm just not counting those guys out. At this point, he's transformed the program into one of the best consistently year in and year out. I think this is going to be one of their tougher challenges this season. We're obviously bullish on the Raiders, but I do think they're going to have some issues to overcome. You lose Jace Young, who's one of the best hitters in college baseball. But there are some young pieces here that I think are going to be pretty interesting. Guys like Owen Washburn and Hudson White had very good freshman years offensively. And then you add into the mix guys like transfers like Kevin Basil. You have guys on the mound who are probably going to be anticipating a little bit of a step forward, right? Because you lose, I believe it's most of the starting rotation, and Andrew Morris and Brandon Birdsell. Can Mason Molina be the Friday night guy? Is Brandon Gerding going to be able to transition to starting full time? Guys like Kyle Robinson, huge arm, a little bit of question mark in terms of what he's going to look like as the spring rolls on. So there's a lot of questions, but Tadlock typically has a lot of the answers too, right? So I think this is definitely an intriguing Texas Tech team, and I'm excited to kind of see what it looks like opening day versus the last day of the season.
Going a little quicker to round out the Big 12, Craig. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you one reason why this team is going to be very good. You give me a complimentary reason. Oklahoma State at number 18. They can win the Big 12 because Jerron Watts-Brown is about as exciting of a transfer coming from Long Beach State, played all three sports in high school. That's my one reason why they can win the Big 12. You give me one reason why they can win the Big 12.
I'm a sucker for two-way guys. I love Nolan McClain. He's a North Carolina kid. I saw him at a very young age, PG All-American. But I don't think he's reached his ceiling yet on the mound. I always thought that's where he would end up. And I'm not saying that's the way it should be, but the guy's massively strong, tremendous athlete. He's going to challenge to hit 20 home runs this year. And depending on what role they could use him in, he could be a 20 home run, 10 save guy. I love him as a two-way guy.
All right, Vinny, same thing with Texas. My reason, Tanner Witt is going to work with Woody Williams and come all the way back and be just everything we expected him to be in college baseball. Williams doesn't pitch for the team. We have to be careful to make too much about coaches, but it's going to make a difference. That's my one reason Texas can win the Big 12. What's your one reason?
My one reason is that Jalen Flores will be the best freshman in the Big 12, and he's going to start right away, play third base, shortstop, really good player back in high school. If he has a very good season, if he's getting a lot of at-bats, producing those at-bats, it's going to bode well for the Longhorns.
You guys are like Power 5 loaded in these rankings. There was a Big 10 school, and then there's a mid-major. There's a mid-major that snuck in. Talk to me about Maryland. Talk to me, and I know there are many that you're going to get yelled at about, and I love that throughout the year. Talk to me, Craig, though, about Maryland. Getting to know who Matt Shaw is has been a dream. Like having interviews with the Cape Cod Player of the Year is a dream. He's a special player, the mind and the game. A couple of reasons Coach Vaughn has his team inside the top 25. What are they?
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Vinny on Maryland right here because I know this is his baby, if that's all right.
I'm coming back to you then. Go, Vinny.
So I love this Maryland team. Somehow over the course of the last 12 months, I turned into the Big Ten defender. Matt Shaw rakes, like you mentioned, son. You talk to him. He's the Cape Cod Player of the Year, the Peachy College Baseball Summer Player of the Year. The lineup's super deep. I'm really interested to see guys like Bobby Zmarzlak in his fourth year. Ian Petrot's really big physical left-handed hitter. They hit a lot of home runs last year, and I think they have a pretty good shot to do so again this year with Shaw leading the charge. I didn't even mention Luke Schliger, the catcher. 12 home runs, 14 stolen bases. The dude's an athlete. He can run, he can hit. Super exciting. And they returned probably the best pitcher in the Big Ten in Jason Savapul. Had an ERA under 3 last year, pitched in 107 innings, 123 strikeouts, really commands the zone. You lose Ryan Ramsey, who's a big piece, but you bring back Savapul, you bring back guys like Nick Dean. It's a very experienced team, and I think this Maryland team is the overwhelming favorite in the Big Ten and has a pretty good shot at potentially getting to a super regional or even Omaha.
I've got Santa Barbara, I've got East Carolina, I've got Coastal Carolina, I've got Dallas Baptist, all on line one wanting to talk to you guys. And they want to know why Southern Miss got invited to the party and all the other mid-majors are going to have to wait. I know you guys will give the due, you always do to the mid-majors that earn it. But talk to me about number 25, Craig. You guys swapped teams, and I love it because you wanted to talk to me about Southern Miss, Coach Scott Berry, chasing 500 wins this year.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons. I mean, Scott Berry's a good friend of mine, and that's a guy that I don't understand why there isn't more national conversation about. He's a loyal guy. He's a Southern Miss guy through and through, and just every year puts a quality team together. But here it is, Tanner Hall. That guy is going to go out and he's going to give you 7 to 8, 9 innings when necessary. He had 109 innings last year. And he's arguably the best Friday night guy in the nation. And you can say that, at Southern Miss. So, what a treat to have that guy going out for you every game one of a 3-game series. Nico Mazza had a huge fall. We've seen an uptick in his stuff. The pitchability was there, but all of a sudden now he's up to 96. Then you got Justin Storm, who he's kind of my pick for a guy that's going to make a big impact this year. I love big guys on the mound. He's 6'7" left-hander, low 90s fastball with an upper 80s cutter. Christopher Sargent, 21 home runs last year, kind of a utility guy. Just a massive hulking presence, a senior that's experienced, and he understands life there, in Hattiesburg. And I tell you what, if you've never been there, it's one of the toughest places in the nation to play a game as an opponent. It's really, really difficult. Beyond the quality team they put out there, that crowd is a major factor. So all the makings are there. That you could very well see Southern Miss, maybe separating themselves a little bit from that league. That might not be a popular comment, but they could separate themselves and then maybe make another return to Omaha. They have that kind of club.
Grand Canyon, Gonzaga, they're also on line 2. Grand Canyon saying, hey, just because we lost Stank doesn't mean we don't want you to love us anymore. Gonzaga's become really special. I love Etzel. Love him. I mean, what did he steal? 20 bags, have 1,000 OPS at Panola. Excited to see him play at the D1 level. Guys, here we go. I'm going to ask for one sleeper, one Omaha sleeper. We've talked about 25 teams, some in depth, some we've kind of gone very quickly through. But I need a sleeper, like an Omaha sleeper. Raise your hand. Who wants to start first? I don't want to put you on the spot. Come on. Hands up in the class. Let's go. Come on, I'll call on somebody if you don't.
Son, I'll take the team that gave us probably the most hate when our top 25 rankings came out, and that's East Carolina. They're a really, really good program. Cliff Godwin's built a really special team. They're on your line too, I'm sure. They're actually probably on their way over here to the studio to come knock my door down. This is a pretty good team. We had them, I think, at 27 in our rankings. Jacob Jenkins Cohort is a legit contender for American Conference Player of the Year. Josh Moylan did a lot of PG stuff in high school, really good hitter, really advanced hitter. And on the mound, they're super deep. Like, they return a lot of pitchers. This is a team that knows how to win. Like Cozy mentioned with Southern Miss, another environment where if you haven't been there, the Pirates fans love their team. They go crazy. And that's why I loved the response that we got from the ECU fans, is they're super passionate about their program. They love their team, and it's definitely going to be one of the better teams in the AAC, and a team that could definitely sneakily rise with these rankings as the season goes on.
So give me a sleeper as well, since you're going to wrap a show, Craig, with the sleeper and maybe 1 or 2 reasons why your sleeper team is going to Omaha.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go with an SEC team, which may not be that popular, but Georgia Bulldogs are, I feel like, really good. Scott Strickland has just quietly Done an awesome job down there in Athens. And this team was pretty good. They were on the verge. Ben and I talked about these guys every week last year. They hit 89 doubles, 81 home runs, and they're way more offensive this year. They had 5 guys hit home runs at 110 miles an hour plus off the bat just this fall. That's 5 guys, 5 different guys doing that. So they're going to bludgeon the baseball. They have 2 sixth-year guys, okay? You were talking about Coach Savage, talking about 23-year-olds are playing in Double-A, right? Well, Ben Anderson and Connor Tate are the heart and soul of that offense, the heart and soul of that team. They've been through it, so I think they have a chance to do it. And the emergence of Jaden Woods, left-handed pitcher, he's going to be one of the best Friday night guys in the SEC, 93 to 96 from the left side. Backed up by 6'6" Liam Sullivan. I think that they have the arms to stay there, and if they get into some slugfests, then I think they're going to end up winning a bunch of those. So Scott Strickland and Georgia Bulldogs have a shot.
We're now that much smarter. We know college baseball that much better. It's nice to make notes, but then you guys bring them to life. Craig, Vinny, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Darren. You're the best. Appreciate you having us.
Thanks, Sut.
Yeah, incredible stuff. And Vinny, and Craig, the knowledge they provide. Hunter Pence and I host a show every week, Perfect Game College Baseball. And in the wintertime, it's a wonderful show, in-depth interviews, but now we've got to be on top of everything that's new, the prospects, their journeys as amateurs, and every single week on our brand new streaming show, Perfect Game College Baseball, one of these two will come on and join us as an expert. We know now you're a little bit more ready, and we wish all these teams we've talked about and those that we haven't a best of luck in 2023 season. It's college baseball time. We'll see you on campus.